might kick off, everyone. Thank you so much for jumping on. I know it's a bit of a crazy time because we've got people finished harvest, we've got growers in the middle of their harvest, and hopefully we don't have anyone just starting their harvest. But we just thought as a team that we would give a bit of a mid-season update for the cherry industry, just to see how things were progressing, how some people went in the early parts of the season, and then how people are still going as Tassie finishes up. So my name is Jess Fearnley and I'm the National Extension Manager for the cherry industry, currently working in the Communication Extension Project funded by Hort Innovation. And I have a great team behind me who have been delivering different extension and communication outputs such as newsletter, podcasts and fact sheets, which I'm really keen to talk to you all about tonight. Just to reiterate, can we just make sure that everyone's on mute when they come in? And if you can remain mute until Q&A, and then I'm happy to let you speak your heart out then. So I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today. I'm meeting from Wiradjuri land, and feel free to pop where you're meeting from in the chat. But I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge and pay my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are joining us tonight. So tonight we're going to give a very quick update on the Extension and Communication Project. We're going to go through some exports on how the mainland cherries went and where we're tracking with the Tasmanian cherries. We'll have a very quick traceability pilot update with CherryHill, Stephen, Riseborough, and then a Tasmanian season update from Brent McClintock. I'd just like to thank Patrick, Stephen and Brent for jumping on, because I know it's very busy at the moment and they've taken their time out of their night to come and speak for us today. And then you'll be able to have a very quick Q&A, and I'll have you all out of here by 8:30 tonight, I promise. So the extension and communication for the cherry industry project has now kicked off and is in full swing. So I'm hoping that all of you have at least heard of the project, and if not, hopefully the next couple of slides will get you on track to be able to use some of the outputs that we're generating from this project. Our first one that I would love everyone to sign up with, and you're allowed to take your phone out and scan away on the QR code, but we've got a monthly cherry industry newsletter. So each month we're going to be doing state updates. So each of my project partners will go out to the regions, have a little look around, talk to some of the key growers in those areas and understand how each of our regions are tracking. This just gives the opportunity for the New South Wales growers to have a look at what the Victorian growers are up to, how the South Australian guys are tracking, and what's happening down in Tassie. So it's a really good opportunity to see how everyone's going and what are some of the challenges or opportunities in each of the growing regions. We'll have all our different events on this newsletter. So that includes webinars like these. As we move forward in the project, we're hoping to have field days and workshops, and we want to make sure that you have enough notice to be able to come along to these events and get the best out of them. We'll also have different publications and research updates from not only Australian researchers, but also global researchers, and hoping to put their published papers in there so you guys know where to access the most up-to-date research outputs. And then, of course, we'll always have news in there, and Gita does a really good job of scouring the internet each month for anything cherry related. We have also just started our Cherry Picked podcast. So that's available on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Again, I've got a little QR code if you'd like to go in, like and subscribe, so then you get updates for when new episodes come out. At the moment, I'm doing them about every fortnight, and I'm having guests from around the world, both in the cherry industry and in other industries as well. So I'm trying to keep it very diverse. And if anyone has any ideas for guests, or if they want to hear from someone desperately, please reach out to me, because I'm more than happy to have a chat. Or if you'd like to be on the podcast, please get in touch as well. But so far we've had Mike O'Meg, Amy Izzoni, we've had Kate Thornton, who is actually a social media influencer. So we've had a lot of different topics already, from cherry nutrition and fertilization to developing your social brand, And then also my most recent episode that's coming out in 2 weeks' time will be all about cherry breeding and the different rootstocks and some different varieties that are becoming available into the future. And probably the most exciting news that I have tonight is that the National Cherry Industry Conference is now open for registration. So we're heading to Hobart this year from the 31st of July to the 2nd of August. We're going to be at the beautiful Hotel Grand Chancellor, which is that wonderful photo there of us looking over the harbour. And we're going to have early bird rates until the 30th of April. So jump onto the Cherry Growers website, have a look. We've got all the prices there. We haven't yet confirmed our full speaker list, but that will be coming very, very shortly. But we will have an export workshop on the Wednesday, a full program on the Thursday with full conference program, on the Thursday with keynote speakers from around the world. We'll have an industry dinner, which is always a lot of fun, and we're hoping to have that on the Hobart waterfront, and that'll also include some industry awards. And then on the Friday, we're going to be heading down to the Huon Valley, looking at some of the most innovative orchards in Tasmania, actually getting out into the field, and hopefully some of our keynote speakers will be coming out with us. And we're also going to be having lunch at the Apple Cider Shed, and we'll have a quick network over some cider tasting. So really keen to have everyone down in Tassie with us. And this is also, if anyone's online and keen to sponsor, we have got our sponsorship prospectus out at the moment. So have a look at our different packages. And again, I'm more than happy to have a chat with anyone who would like about our different packages and options. So that's enough from me. I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to pass on to Patrick Alua, who is going to give us a very quick update on how our exports are tracking and what we saw in the mainland this season.
Okay, hopefully I've got the correct screen.
If you just want to make it into big version, perfect.
It's perfect there. All right, so it is always a pleasure to talk to the people in the cherry industry. I've been working for the industry for about 10 months now, and I'm very excited. This was my first season, and it has been great. It has been a really good time for me. Hopefully, I'll be able to make some good connections with the industry. And today I only have 10 minutes, so I have to make sure that I go fast and I complete all the, I share all the information that I've got very quickly. I'm going to concentrate in two things. One is going to be sort of how we went with the export season, just for the mainland, because Brent later on is going to talk about Tasmania. So I will concentrate on what was happening in the mainland. And then I will also talk about some of the trade development projects that we have been doing. You would have seen some of those things, but it's always good to go over them again, just to make sure that that everybody's aware. So let's talk about the export season. This is the type of information that we have been sharing on a weekly basis. You should have been receiving this type of information, market intelligence report. If you have not received this type of information and you are a grower or exporter, please send me an email, export@cherrygrowers.org.au, and I will make sure that you receive this information, because this is being updated on a weekly basis. So what this chart is showing on the thick red line here is showing the weekly exports from Australia. And November, you can see that this was going really good compared to the other 2 years. The blue line represent the season 21-22, and the dotted red line over here represent last season, which was, you can see there that we were not exporting much due to the weather conditions that we had last season. But this season, when we started at least, you can see November, how we were going higher and higher, and we were exporting double, even triple sometimes in some of those weeks. You can see that more or less at the end of November here, we were exporting nearly 3 times what was exported more or less at the same time the previous season. So it was looking really, really good. But then sadly, when we reached that point there at the end of November, we went down and we sort of went flat the whole month of December, and then started to go up again because of the fruit that was coming from Tasmania. So I'm not going to talk about the part from Tasmania. It's only November and December. And I spoke to a few people, you know, like I was talking to Vincent Chen from Top Fruit the other day, you know, trying to get an understanding of what happened, what you know, why we have such a good November, and then we went sort of flat and even lower in December. You know, he was explaining to me that there were two main reasons that were affecting our ability to export. One was the weather conditions. That was the first thing that affected everything. We had some weather conditions that changed, and then suddenly the volume that we have available for export, because the quality maybe wasn't as good, people felt that the risk might have been too high to export, so they decided to keep the product in Australia to avoid the risk. And also because we have been exporting a lot in November, the local market, the price of cherries in the local market became good as well and competitive. And then some people thought, well, the risk of exporting compared to what we can get here in Australia without so much risk, probably was better to do it that way. And that would explain why we have such a good November and then we went flat. I think it's important that we review the weather conditions. We can see that here, the rainfall in November, when we look at all the areas where we produce Orange, Young, Yarra Valley, Adelaide Hills, we were doing pretty well in November until the 23rd of November, when we had a big rain event, boom, here on the 23rd of November, and we had a big issue here in Orange. And then on the 29th of November, again, boom, boom, another big ones, one in Adelaide Hills that got it really bad there, and also Young. And I think I was in that area when it was raining that much on that occasion. So I saw all the rain happening. So two main events at the end of November that caused issues with the industry. And then we moved to December, and we can see again, mid-December, again, poor Adelaide, boom, they get it again. And then Young gets it that again. And then at the end, we kind of forget Yarra Valley. They had to get it as well. So at the very end of our season, we found that that they got issues as well with the weather. So at the end, everybody got some, but at least when you compare with our main competitor, you can see here a chart showing one of the main areas of cherry productions in Chile. And you can see here Curicó, a city called Curicó, another one called Talca. It's a main production area in Chile. Have a look. This is only one day in August. I just got one just to show it as a reference, that's all. In one day, look at that, 150 mils, 185. I mean, that was huge. So the impact on that industry was huge. I was there about a couple of months ago, and I can tell you, I saw some orchards that were planted close to a river, obviously too close, and the sand and the rocks were covering more than half of the trees. I mean, they were nearly to the top of the tree, just with sand, covered with sand and rocks. So yeah, you cannot muck around with nature for sure. So that affected the export of Chile. You can see here, they export to China pretty much the same, but you can see that Taiwan, less than 41%, and then Korea, less than 53%. So obviously the Chileans were concentrating on supplying their customers in China, and they had to leave some of the other countries like Taiwan and Korea. They had to say sorry, but that obviously opened the doors for us to have even a better market and more opportunities for export. The thing is, the whole industry internationally is totally interconnected. You know, we have lots of buckets that are receiving the supply from Chile, from Australia, from New Zealand, from all over the place. Everything is connected. Whatever is happening in one market, it will affect somewhere else. We are totally connected. That's the way it is. So some of the lessons we have, that every season is really different, but some things remain the same. weather challenges. We're going to have weather challenges all the time. Is something that we need to understand, and protected cropping becomes more and more important. I think this is unavoidable. We have to think about how we can do that better. Also, I said before, the cherry markets are totally interconnected. Whatever happens in Chile is going to affect the market in China. Whatever happens in the market in China is going to affect the Vietnamese market, and that, of course, is going to have our ability to supply from Australia. We are totally connected one with another. There is no way to avoid it. And the most important lesson is that good quality is always in demand. No matter what happens, if we have good quality, that will always be in demand. And just to finalize, I want to mention a couple of things that we have been doing with the trade development project. One thing is that we have the Korean verification audit, and I have to thank you, all the growers that were part of that audit, because they were representing the whole industry. If we do well in that verification audit, then that means that the Korean government is going to be satisfied that we have a good system here in Australia, and that will open the doors to all the other growers. So I want to thank all the growers that were selected randomly to go through this audit, and they did well. And so thank you to all of them. The market intelligence report, that you should be receiving that on a weekly basis and getting that information. I've been developing some quick reference guides. I've got an example there at the bottom, the pest of quarantine concern. You should receive that today. So a number of them have been produced, and I will continue to produce some more. If you're not receiving them, again, send me a message, and I'll be happy to share that with you. The Cherry Show app is up to date. We have been participating on some promotional events with Hort Innovation, China, Vietnam. We always are there trying to help promote the industry. And I want to emphasize what we're doing with the Extension and Communication Project. We are trying to organize a really good cherry industry conference for all of you. And so hopefully you will be able to make it. We will have a really good export workshop as well. So we are very excited about that conference, and hopefully you will be there, and we will be able to meet in person. So thank you very much for that.
Great, thanks so much, Patrick. And I know I reiterate what Patrick has said. I'm really excited to be working with the trade project as well on that conference. And like Patrick mentioned, he's more than happy for any grower to reach out to him. I might, Patrick, you to pop your email in the chat too for anyone that might have any questions after the webinar about exports. So thank you, Patrick. I will now pass on to Stephen Riseborough from CherryHill Orchard down in Victoria, and he's going to give a bit of an update on the cherry traceability project that's been happening with AgVic and Cherry Growers Australia and CherryHill.
Thanks, Jess. G'day, everyone. Thanks for asking me to give this update. If I can just start, I'll show you this little thing. That, if you can see that, there's a slide with a picture of that. That's an RFID tag. We'll get to that in a minute. I'll just start presenting if I can. Has everyone got that?
Yep, looks good there, Stephen.
Yep.
Okay, just go on full screen mode. Everyone's got that? Yeah, so this is a multi-year project, and very pleased to be part of it. It's a pilot project which follows on from traceability projects you're probably aware of, were rolled out in citrus and also table grapes. So we've been working with AgVic on that one, and CGA is the project partner to roll this out to industry, and there's going to be quite a lot of reporting that I'm sure Geeta and others will be sending through, and there's videos to come and quite a lot. So I'll start with our overall what the project's about. It's tracing information about the fruit, from which farm, varieties, blocks, right through the process of harvest, through transport, through packing, through dispatch, and then onto consumer. And part of it's internal traceability, and part of it's actually consumer engagement. And it covers all different areas, as you see below: food safety, biosecurity, all different things. So it's quite broad, and I'll try and get through these slides as quick as I can. And it's all about having GS1 compliance, and I believe that that will become somewhat mandatory with export. I don't want to say exactly all the details of that, but that's what I'm led to believe. So project partners: AgVic, Cherry Growers Australia, and these are our technology providers that we work with. First part of the project was RFID that I mentioned. Ramp and Dialogue were the partners there, along with GS1. And the second year, which we've just been through and rolled out, that was utilising QR code traceability technology, and that was with trust codes, and also a small add-on with Escalox, which you may have known those guys. They do the temperature tracing. I won't go through all this. It's quite in depth. There's quite a lot going on, but some of this information will be available to explain how the system works. But in a nutshell, we're picking fruit. We're harvesting all of our, at CherryHill, all of our fruits harvested and decanted into bins, both timber and plastic. We are then printing bin cards, and those bin cards have that RFID chip and antenna. Don't ask me how that works, but it basically gets a signal from the readers, and it excites the little chip involved, and it sends back what the number is. So that's linked to our internal tracking codes. So it goes through the process of receival. And number 6 there, the RFID reader, that's when it's first received and transferred from farm, and then we transport to where we're packing down in the Yarra Valley at Coldstream. Number 11 there, you can see the packing shed RFID bin reader. That's receiving those bins into our cool store facility there. That's it there again. When we're actually packing, we've got a robot bin tipper. So again, we've got an RFID reader that's reading the RFID tags at that point. If there's a bin from, say, a different block, or it could be a different variety, it will alert us so that we don't allow that fruit to be loaded onto the machine, because that would then cause havoc as far as, you know, traceability. We've broken that at that point. So we're checking all that information. The fruit's packed, and then we've got outbound traceability with that Stereotech Melbourne label you see there. It's also got an RFID chip embedded in it. So on dispatch, number 16 there, that fruit's going out and it's traced at that point as well. I'll just run through these pretty quickly. When we're packing the fruit, so that was year 1, and a little bit into this last year. This season just gone, we've successfully rolled out consumer outbound traceability on every single pack of cherries, barring punnets for domestic market. So those QR codes are live. If you want to take a picture there, and you know, you'll see where it gets to. It goes to a mini site. Trust codes have developed this. It ranges from, you know, again, food security, but also, you know, consumer engagement. Food fraud is a thing out there, so it can be useful in those areas too. So if you scan that, you go onto the mini site. There's all sorts of information. We had a consumer competition which was run domestic in a small scale as a trial. There's a fair bit to it to set it up. And then we also replicated that in Vietnam with one of our customers. And then there was some non-competition QR codes that went out to other retail and in Singapore also. So there's some domestic stuff you're seeing. it's just a way of promoting. I'm thinking that the cherries probably are the most important thing, not the competition, but that's just one thing. And then there's social media, obviously, is a part of all this when you're talking marketing. So it's quite interesting to see what people think and get involved. Vietnam, same idea. We've got, point of sale material, online promotions that are happening, giveaways. The competition, I think there was 28 winners in Vietnam, so a lot stronger than here. We're still searching for one here in Australia. Been trouble contacting people, but we'll get there. So yeah, it's something interesting, and QR codes are probably more broadly used overseas than they are here historically in Australia. So here's some of the winners. They were happy, and I think they got free boxes of cherries. Singapore, there was no competition in Singapore, but again, promoting the product, promoting the fact that it's cherries from Australia, and hopefully lots of people lining up to buy good quality fruit. Temperature tracking, this is Escavox. Yeah, this is really interesting technology. Little Rhine recorders that somehow or other linked up to satellite tracking. And here's a map that I just printed out this morning. Actually, there's still trackers sending live data. So interesting to see where fruit's gone, and it's still sending out, temperature, which obviously they're not in the fridge at this point in time. But again, interesting technology. And as I say, there'll be a lot of reporting coming out for industry, how-to guides as this technology becomes more accessible and gets rolled out throughout supply chains accordingly. So that's about it. If any questions later, happy to try my best.
Great, thanks so much, Stephen. And it's really exciting to see that this project has got so many different phases as well, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and a couple of things added on. So hopefully when the results become available a bit later on, we'll be really keen to share those with everyone as well. So I'm going to pass on to our last speaker before we jump into our Q&A. So we've got Brent here from Tasmania. Poor Brent's just finished off his harvest yesterday, so he's fresh and feeling probably quite tired.
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Brent McClintock. I run a couple orchards up in the north of the state. We're based around the Tamar Valley, just north of Launceston. So we started around the 3rd of Jan, and then we've been running through pretty hard all the way up until the weekend. And the last fruit left the packing shed this morning. We have a very strong export focus, as does most of the rest of Tassie, and it's been for my personal business, the business I manage, it's been our biggest year with 300 tonne picked, 350 tonne packed, because we did some third-party fruit as well along the way. Overall, the season's been good in Tasmania. There's been a couple sort of significant weather events which have knocked a few people around, but as more and more people are investing in rain covers, these rain events are becoming they're having less effect on the industry, so to speak. There's been a huge uptake in rain covers across the north and south of the state. And we personally had a 45 mil rain event on the 17th of January. And with the blocks that were covered, there was very little rain damage in them, versus some of the stuff that we still had left uncovered. Definitely, with Tassie's, definitely you're seeing a large investment in rain covers to secure our crops. With the later Chinese New Year this year, with it being around the 10th of Feb, a lot of people were applying high rates of GA to try and delay their crops so they could time in for Chinese New Year. Unfortunately, the weather has sort of worked against us. It was an early season, but for ourselves, it's worked quite well. For the northern grower, or for the more northern growers than us, based around Devonport, they were finished their crops sort of around the 16th of January. so significantly earlier than normal. Down around the Huon Valley and Derwent, I think the majority of the crops picked around the Derwent from talking to growers down there, and there's still people going down in the Huon Valley, mainly with later varieties like the Staccato and the Sovereign and Centennial that are now becoming quite popular. The markets overall have been quite buoyant, if not a little bit challenging, but overall I think it's been a very positive season. By not having Chile involved in some of the markets like Vietnam, South Korea and stuff like that, it's definitely giving us our opportunity. New Zealand's also had a lighter crop than what they normally would, and that certainly opened the door for Taiwan as well. They've been a major player in that market for a long time. Definitely, I think most people are going to be quite happy to be finished down here. It's been a long season. And there's a lot of new plantings that have come on. They've been planted in the last sort of 5-6 years that are now starting to come on. We're starting to see a lift in production.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Brent. And did you say that all of Tassie are now finished, or we've still got a few growers hanging on for those last few weeks? So
there's still a few growers down south that are still harvesting, mainly in later varieties, like the traditional varieties of like Blackford and stuff like that. They're all done. So now with the people who've got plantings of later varieties, like the Staccato or Sovereign, or there's several other later varieties now floating around. That's what's keeping people going. And would you say demand is still high for those, or starting to dwindle? The demand for leading up into Chinese New Year is still quite strong. The traditional shutdown that they have over Chinese New Year will affect demand, but that's becoming less and less significant, it seems, each year. Like normally it used to be that you wouldn't get orders for like 7 days because they're all going on holiday, they've all brought their cherries, they're all not thinking about it. Over the last couple of years, we've seen it's only been a shutdown for 2 or 3 days, and then they're ordering again and products starting to flow again. Yeah, that's great. At least it shuts the window just a little bit, so we still get fruit on the market. Yeah, it's still, the market's still not as buoyant as it is pre-Chinese New Year, but there's still a market there after it. So great. Well, thank you so much, Brent. I really appreciate your time, especially just finishing up and sending those last boxes off very recently. I might invite everyone, all our speakers, back for some Q&A now. And if you're looking to ask one of the presenters tonight a question, feel free to just pop it in the chat or come off mute, and I'm sure one of our speakers will be able to answer your questions. But while we're waiting, I might just ask Stephen a question. Stephen, talking about all the different forms of traceability and the different information that you're getting back from some of these products and some of the competitions, I went on the little QR code, there's a survey. How's CherryHill using this information generated? Like, is it then flowing through to how you might be looking at management decisions of the trees, different varieties? How are you guys using that data?
Good question. It's a pretty big question. We're having our end of project wrap ups now, both internally and with the entire project team. So it's probably something I'll have to take on notice and get back to you in full detail. But look, I think the possibilities are pretty massive, really. I mean, to understand where fruit might be going, where it's going, or something's popped up over there where you thought it might not, that could be really interesting information to know. You know, as far as varieties and all that, we're not thinking that that's something at the moment, but who knows? I mean, if you had surveys, as you say, the possibilities are pretty endless to really, you know, engage with consumers. But it's really early days. Like there's just been so much to do with the project to roll it out at this point in time. We could only do so much. One of the things that we originally thought, oh, let's do competitions everywhere. We'll go holus bolus throughout whole of Asia. That requires having legal terms and conditions for every single legal jurisdiction that you can think of. Even in Australia, there's, every state has a different legal jurisdiction. So the complexity of all this is also really quite extreme. But we'll see where it goes.
Just to have that information available to start making some of those decisions is, it's going to be so valuable for your business. And just to understand, where your products ended up, how it was received, and what the consumer's thoughts was, again, is something that you don't get every day. So it'll be exciting to see where you probably be inundated with data and trying to piece through it. We've just got some more questions in the chat here. So iPhone, I'm not quite sure who this is from, but tried to get some POS material and was unsuccessful. Does the Cherry Growers Association have any that exported to distribute to their customers? Is that a Patrick question, I think? Yeah.
We don't have any point of sale material ourselves, but we know that Hot Innovation developed some material for this season. I'm not sure if they tried Hot Innovation and they were unsuccessful, or they didn't try them. But I know for sure that the Hot Innovation has produced some material that they were making that available to exporters.
Mm-hmm. So what we can do as well, if you want to get in touch with myself or Patrick, we could probably pass your details on to the Hot Innovation guys, and we can connect you back up with that. I can see Fiona, you've got your hand up. Would you like to come off mute and ask a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Question for Steve. Steve, did you print your QR code within your packaging, or did you apply that in Packhouse? And if so, what sort of impact did that have on the pack line?
So we're pretty lucky, Fiona, thanks. We already had inline printing. So we have got Peacock's printers at the moment. The Zebra is also another well-known brand of printers that integrate with this sort of system. You'll see in some of the information that comes through in our business, we use an ERP, which links up everything from our growing right through to harvest, dispatch, sales, and finance. So it's all integrated in that, and that part of the project was substantial as well. Good question on the printing though, because we encountered, if you've got connectivity issues with internet, we had a lightning strike at one stage on one of the farm receivals, and the whole system went down for a day. So, having backup redundancies is probably a learning for us going into the future too. Either a manual total redundant backup system or how to keep the system alive in that situation. I mean, everything's safe and secure on the cloud, wherever that is, but the physical location can be vulnerable through something like that, lightning or internet or electrical faults, whatever it might be.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Does that answer it? Sorry.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, man.
Okay.
Thanks, Fiona. Just got one from Kim and Albert Jones. Is there any talk of grants in 2024 to assist with rain covers? I can answer this one, and if any of the other guys know as well, but I haven't heard of anything yet around grants, but it does depend on the different states and the different governments in each state. There hasn't been a federal one announced either. So what I suggest, Kim or Albert, whoever's asking the question, is just make sure you're keeping an eye out and keeping up to date with all your states. If we hear of anything, the Extension and Communication Project will definitely advertise that if anything becomes available, and make sure that we get that information to the growers as soon as possible as well. So I don't know, Patrick, or has anyone heard of any?
No, I haven't.
Grants? No. No worries. Kev, you've got one for Brents. What is the brand a typical cost per hectare for the rain covers being implemented in the Tamar?
Like for the system we have gone with, we're looking at around 110,000 a hectare to install at the very rough cost, because the smaller the block, the more expensive it is. The bigger the block, the cheaper it is. The majority of your cost is in your end assemblies, your anchors, and all, that's where the majority of the work is. So for us, we're now looking at blocks and going, there are some blocks in our properties mostly won't cover because they're not cost effective. It's too much work. Whereas the bigger blocks, our newer plantings, they're going to be a lot easier and a lot more cost effective to do. There are cheaper options, but the option we've gone with, it suits our site. We know it takes 100 km an hour wind without falling down, and that's what you've sort of got to look at if you are looking at these systems, what weather events you're going to have to deal with, and whether or not the system will do it, because there are cheaper systems out there. They just don't seem to be as robust in wet, big winds.
Thanks, Brent. And I know that there's a fair bit of work coming out of Tassie. I did see before Cameron Stone's on the line, who's done a lot of work around protective covers, and New South Wales DPI are also doing an economic analysis. So if anyone's interested, that data should hopefully be coming out in the next little bit. Kev's got another one there for you, Brent. Also, do you think the need for rain covers will drive investment in new trellis growing systems?
I don't see it. I don't see trellising at the moment providing any benefit over the bush that we're currently growing. We've got trials in the ground of UFO and stuff like that, and or my view is all you're doing by adding trellising is you're adding cost to your system. You're not gaining any real production or any ease of harvest at the moment with the systems that they're out there. We're pretty efficient with what we're doing with the bush variations we're doing at the moment. So it's really hard to see how we're going to get more efficient.
Can I say something there? Just a second. Look, it's not my area of expertise, so maybe I'm saying something completely wrong here. But in my last trip to Chile, I noticed that they were working on this pergola system. It looked fantastic. You know, I don't know if it works so good, but it just looks fantastic. I'm going to produce a video soon, and I'm going to share with you what I saw. But in my mind, at least, if you could have that pergola plus the structure to protect against the weather, I think it would, at least it would look really good. I will share it with everybody, and then you can shoot me down afterwards.
Yeah, I've seen, Patrick showed me the photos, and it is, yeah, pretty incredible and something a little bit foreign over here. So hopefully when you video, Patrick will be able to share it and yeah, have a look. And yeah, exactly right, Kev. The Hort Frontiers Narrow Orchard System project has got a cherry component, which is really exciting. So they will be looking into the different tree spacings and different systems that cherries can be grown on, and actually get some really tangible data out of that, which will be really, really good for us in Australia. Does anyone have any other questions for any of our guests tonight? I don't think so. Well, we might have a bit of an early mark. Does any of the presenters have anything else they would like to say? No? Good, all shaking hands. Perfect. Well, I will just finish off by popping up my details on the screen here. If you have any feedback, questions, anything that we spoke about this afternoon and you want to get some more information, please get in touch with me. I'm also happy to chat about anything with the conference as well, and that includes sponsorship. So please, I've got my email and mobile, but I've also got my LinkedIn there as well. So please get in touch. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone for jumping on tonight and actually being live. It's great to see everyone's faces, and I hope you got at least something out of tonight. We will be running an end of season webinar, and that will include similar things such as the whole of the industry export updates, we'll have some research updates again, and we might even have another agronomist on just to talk about the different pests and disease that we saw and how to protect your trees going into dormancy. So I will release you, let you get back to your evenings, and thanks again for jumping on.